Can you be sober while smoking marijuana? In this video, I'm going to talk about it. So there's the idea that in sobriety, you can smoke marijuana as long as you're not using harder drugs. Say you're an alcoholic and you take up the weed to get off the booze. Can you consider yourself sober even though you're smoking marijuana, which is a substance? It's a hallucinogen, it's a mild psychedelic, it's an intoxicant, but it keeps you off of, say, smoking methamphetamine, or it keeps you away from pounding 26ers of liquor. Are you technically sober? There's a lot of discussion in recovery communities online about whether or not we're sober if we smoke weed, as long as it keeps us away from the harder drugs and alcohol. So the argument for being sober and clean while smoking weed is that weed helps people manage their cravings and their desires for harder substances. The argument from the other side is that you're not clean unless you're completely clean off of all substances, all intoxicants, all drugs. And now marijuana is technically a drug and it's an intoxicant. So the counter argument from the marijuana clean side, and we'll call this the Cali sober, in California, getting sober in California means you're smoking weed, but you're not doing anything else. So our counter argument to this is that, well, caffeine's a drug. There's sugar is a drug. There's substances in chocolate, dark chocolate, phenylamine or phenethylamine or whatever that substance is. It's a mild stimulant. It's an endogenous amphetamine, and that's in chocolate. And then caffeine's in chocolate, and caffeine's in coffee, and sugars and all kinds of substances and food that we consume on a daily basis. So if we're chasing a sugar rush, or if we're chasing a caffeine high, aren't we not sober? This is the argument from the Cali sober side. Now, my thoughts are, if you're taking a drug and it's an intoxicant and it's not prescribed for a medically valid reason, then you're not clean. Even if it's keeping you off of heroin, off of fetty, off of meth, off of liquor, if you're smoking marijuana, smoking dabs, ingesting edibles, you're getting high. That's the base fact. You don't really get high off of caffeine. You don't really get high off of sugar. Caffeine, sugar, these are more compounds that we consume in food, nutrition. Marijuana is not a food. Marijuana is not nutrition, even though you can eat it in an edible. It's an intoxicant. It's a psychedelic. It's a hallucinogen. And when you smoke marijuana, you're intoxicating yourself. You're altering your state of mind. So my statement here is, no, you cannot be clean and smoke marijuana, even if it's keeping you off of the harder drugs. You're doing what's called the marijuana maintenance program. You're maintaining your abstinence from harder drugs with a lighter, softer drug called marijuana. But that's not being clean. That's not being sober. And if you say you're sober and you're clean while you're smoking marijuana, you're taking away from the work and the effort of addicts and alcoholics who maintain sobriety without marijuana. You can't use caffeine as a counter argument because caffeine is an intoxicant. This is the difference. Caffeine is not an intoxicant. It's a mild stimulant and it boosts mental clarity, focus. What it does is it increases the amount of dopamine receptors. Caffeine increases the amount of dopamine receptors in the brain. It doesn't actually stimulate the release of dopamine. It just allows the brain to make use of the dopamine that's available. But drugs like marijuana, THC, that actually stimulates the release of dopamine and other neurotransmitters. So you need an exogenous or an external source for that stimulation. And it's an intoxicant. You get high. You're literally heightening your state of mind and arousal and being. So as far as I'm concerned, smoking marijuana, even if you're clean off of other substances, does not make you clean and sober. Yeah, you can boast about getting off of the harder drugs and the alcohol, but by saying you're as clean as someone who is completely abstinent from all drugs and all substances, you're detracting from what they've accomplished themselves. So I hope this video finds you well and it doesn't trigger you too. I hope this video finds you well and it doesn't trigger you too hard. Give me a like and subscribe, and check out this one for more.